Anthony Johnson retires.
I cannot believe we didn't talk about this.
Yeah, out of nowhere. And one of the things is, I guess the big thing is, well, what's he going to do next? What's his secret that he has? So I don't feel comfortable in reveal. I don't know why he's kept it a secret.
Do you know?
Yes, but he did. He elected not to say for whatever reason. So whether I understand that reason or not, you have to respect it. But that is now the bigger storyline. Well, what's he going to do now?
But you do know.
Yeah, and I do think that it's very interesting. Because it did come out of nowhere, and he had said in the post-fight interview, which, I mean, what a gentleman. Was he gracious or what? But he did say one thing that was interesting, which is, only a couple of my family members knew. I didn't even tell my coaches or team. I haven't told Dana yet. Relevance being, it wasn't a matter of outcome. That was his last fight. If he would have won the strap, that was his last fight. And, he was moving on to something else. And you can have all the talks that everybody else has. I'll co-sign him too. Yeah, he's the top. There's 3 guys in that weight class between DC, John Jones, and Anthony Johnson. And the separation between them and number 4, 5, and on down is a very, very big gap. So there is no arguing that he could walk out there, do that job, and collect a paycheck for a meaningful period of time. But he wants to go do something else, and he doesn't want to say what that is. I don't understand, and maybe later that'll be revealed to me, and I'll get why, but it is his information, it is his news, and there you go. You respect it at that.
Well, the one thing about that, I thought about that this morning, and nobody wins their last fight. Nobody wins their last fight when they know it's their last fight. I mean, you guys can correct me. Somebody has, obviously.
I got you.
But am I going to have the same opinion of who wins that fight if I know this is his last fight? Probably so.
Sure.
Probably so. Let me tell you what I liked about AJ. Now going back and that being his last fight, he said some really interesting things. And you can tell he's thought about it. And even though he is the one dropping the hammer 9 out of 10 times, hurting people and getting hurt was part of it. He was like, you can only stay in this thing so long, and you're going to have some effects. You're going to have some effects down the road, or you may have some effects down the road. So when you look at those words coming out, and then you see that he retires, then it kind of makes sense the reason he fought the way he did, or maybe that first big overhand right that clipped him from DC kind of said, well, if this is going to be my last fight, I'm going to make sure I go out of here on my own feet.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what happened there. I hear everything you're saying. Maybe it played an outcome in the fight. I mean, that fight was much like the first fight. It didn't look very much different to me. And then he tried to rest a little bit so he could talk about his strategy. But I thought it looked the same. I don't know that you could say he had a different motivation or prepared differently. He looked like he did in the first fight. Look, Daniel Cormier is a better fighter. And Daniel Cormier might even be a better athlete, and that's a big compliment because AJ is such an amazing athlete. The gifts that he was born with, his DNA is, he just is. But so is Daniel. The difference is Daniel doesn't look like one. Daniel looks a little pudgy. He looks more like an everyman, and Anthony Johnson looks like he's sculpted out of clay. But if you go look at their explosiveness, Daniel Cormier, I can just remember in his wrestling years with those hips, the way he could float. He would be in the air. Somebody would be throwing him. He would not even have his feet on the ground. And he could adjust in the air and come out on top, like Travis West. Yeah, and it's a really skill that you're really just given, and then you can go and perfect upon that. The old expression, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Well, when you have talent and you work hard, like DC and Rumble, it's no wonder they're fighting for world championships repeatedly. It's one of those deals. So, and I've heard people say about Rumble that he's going out on top and he's got a lot left, and the hypocrisy knows no bounds, and you and I are not above that either. We come on here and we'll go any which way with an argument. So some guys, remember when Carlos Condit retired and you and I were pissed? And we're like, what are you talking about, Carlos? You're the freaking man.
I didn't know he retired.
Yeah, Carlos, we did a whole bit on it. Carlos retired. I think it was a Beyond the Fight. Carlos retired and you and I are like, what are you talking about? You're incredible. And so now people are doing this to AJ. Hey, what are you talking about? You're top fighter in the world. But we go the other way, too. Hey, what's this guy still sticking around for? Hey, this guy's done. Hey, this guy should hang on. We can't be happy either way. And you and I are as guilty as everybody that's listening to it, that we just seem to do that. The real answer is, hey, AJ, Thanks for the memories, man. Amazing career.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and if you want to go out and go do something else and you're young enough and energetic enough and you see an opportunity somewhere, again, good for you. You don't have to give us everything we want. All he has to do is give all he wants.
Here's my takeaway from that. Mike Perry was on the show, and he was talking about what the big difference between a year ago and now. And he said, well, I'm starting to enjoy it again. He went a little bit deeper because he can afford to feed himself now. So it's easier. It's obviously easier doing a training camp when that's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. And you've got enough money to pay your bills. Now you go to a guy like AJ who is knocking people out. He is making great money. And he's gotten to the point where, hey, man, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. You, for instance, I've watched two sides. I've watched your entire career. You're in a place right now where it's fun again for you, and you actually appreciate it. You're starting to say things that you actually appreciate a lot of the stuff that you get to do. I think by you getting me to start training again in that environment instead of just working out, you've said, yeah, here's what I get from it. I remember a time where you did not like it, where you were burnt out, and it was hard for me as your bro to have to see you go through all of that training that made you miserable and more miserable. So it's really good for me to see you enjoying it again. I respect AJ getting out on top. And AJ, if you can make money outside of the hurt business, brother, stay outside of the hurt business. You'll be the first one. You'll be the first one that didn't come back and take a big check.
Yeah, no, that's all very true. And AJ even talked about the post-fight press conference saying, the match that people did want to see that I never got to do was me and John Jones. And he's right. That is a match that people wanted to see and still do, because you do have, you've got this rare situation where three guys have separated themselves from the pack. Jones, DC, AJ. So you have to have that parity. You got to do that round robin, and sometimes even a couple of times, and who's going to come out on. That's the one fight that we didn't get to see. And we all know that the MMA math doesn't work. You can't just say, well, Jones beat DC, DC beat Rumble, so Rumble's out. It's like, well, no, we kind of need to see that matchup. And you could argue who's better between them, and I think rightfully so, you'd say Jones, but you're going to watch that fight because what Rumble can do in the first 4 minutes of a contest with any man alive is special, and it's unique, and John Jones is just a man, and Rumble could find him.
Sure.
And that's that speculation that drives this entire sport and industry. So I guess I'll just leave it at this. I was surprised when I listened to our podcast of all the things we talked about. We didn't talk about that. And also just a quick thank you to AJ. I mean, he did leave us with some great memories. He did conduct himself like a gentleman. And so, boom, there you are.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy to have fought numerous times at 170 pounds. I mean, he said he used to lose 60 pounds. That's just crazy. That is just insanity.
Yeah, I was in a sauna with him. I can't remember who I competed with. I think it was... I think I competed with Okami that night, which and Johnson was getting ready to fight Koscheck, and we were in the sauna, and man, I mean, it was a scene. We were all dying, but nothing like him. He was dry. That sauna was so hot. He was in there, however long he was in there before I got in. I went as long as I could go, and was out, and he was still in there. But the one thing I noticed is he wasn't sweating. He was dry, and he missed weight by 7 pounds. He was dry and missed it by 7 pounds. And so then he moved up to 185, if you'll remember. Fought Vitor. Missed that by 8 pounds. Missed it by an extra pound and up 15 pounds. Then he goes on the open circuit. He fought all the way at heavyweight. He stopped Orlovsky. I was there for that. Broke Orlovsky's jaw. To speak on AJ's power. But that was at heavyweight. And I thought, well, that's where he needs to stay. Just stay at heavyweight. But he came back to 205. He never had any problems again. In fact, for this fight, he weighed in underweight. And he seemed to really get things on track. So, yeah.
Is what AJ's going to do have anything to do with football?
I don't want to talk about it whatsoever because AJ did not confide in me. I wouldn't talk about it anyway. I mean, even if he had. But I don't want to talk about it at all, but I'll tell you this. Do you think AJ would take a Pringle? I think he'd love one of your Pringles right now. He'd probably take the whole thing. But it's pretty cool, and I don't personally understand, one, why it has to say secret, but a lot of secrets work that way. You don't always understand why it is. And secondly, I also am not sure why he couldn't do both. Go into this new venture and still compete. I'm not certain of what that is. But again, that's his decision. I'm not second guessing it. I'm just telling you that's where we're at. And thanks, AJ, for the fights, man.